The Little Mermaid, more than a little backlash. The race bending of characters. Next up on Just Talk, so let's talk about it. And welcome to the Flicks, Picks, and the Nitpicks. And I am your humble host, Nove 718. We're gonna get right into it. We see The Little Mermaid is out now. And I'm not going to get into the box office and all that. We're going to have more conversations on this because I do want this to be something that we discuss on this channel for a lot of reasons. Now, the backlash on Halle Bailey's The Little Mermaid is a little bit disjointed, if you ask me. And I've yet to see the actual film. I actually plan on seeing it sometime in the next couple of weeks to get my own discernment. My biggest conversation is, and we're going to dig a little bit deeper into the YouTubers that propagate it, but I want to get into the concept and the idea of why The Little Mermaid did not do so well. And I'm going to run into a couple of what I've heard in all honesty before we really get to it on why it's not doing well. Now, I'm hearing conversations about the CG not being the best. Issues with the animals looking too realistic as opposed to looking animated, so they don't emote as well. But we didn't hear this type of issues with the Lion King, so I'm gonna slide that over to being inconsistent. And you don't hear enough people arguing that, but that is an argument. But I'll slide that to the side because the Lion King did absolutely well, utilizing the same techniques for the animals. So we'll slide that to the side. The CGI, I haven't seen it. I've heard issues like that with Quantumanium, Ant-Man and the Wasp Quantumanium. I haven't seen that one yet as well, so I'll take that as a legitimate claim. The changes with songs and certain storylines, I'll even accept that because on some degree, we have to hold Disney accountable for how they carelessly marketed this film without reading the tea leaves, as it were, because we have plenty of evidence that the way they marketed it was only going to work to the detriment of the film, in terms of saying that you're going to change the ending with the steering of the ship into I was going to say Cruella, into the bad guy, the octopus lady, I think Ursula. They say that Ariel does it. Then they also say Ariel, people remember the beginning where the statue of the prince, it falls in the water and she kind of gets infatuated with the statue before she sees him. That got omitted. They say that you see the statue fall down later on, and the reasoning behind it is they didn't want her only motivation to lose her voice. And I hate that fucking phrase. Lose her voice is one of the most overused phrase. Lose her voice to be with a man, yet it's in the actual fairy tale. So in updating it, they wanted to bake it with feminist propaganda and overtly said so, and then have a black girl be the face of it. That was poor marketing, poor decision making, and it was silly for Disney to put her in the middle of that while marketing the film to a feminist enclave of women that, if I'm not mistaken, they did the census. Over the years in America, women are less inclined to want to claim being feminist. Though, let's be for real, there's a lot of famous ideology baked into the modern woman. And you still try to market it, this family film, and a fairy tale film of princesses. And the concept of princesses came out of the fact of men pursuing and pedestalizing the princess or little girls, running to save them, risking life and danger to save the little woman for her love. Well, not the little woman, but the woman for her love. And that was something that little girls were raised off of, these type of ideals and concepts that they carry with them as adults, even as a modern woman, though they're nothing like their former selves, to get men to be on their level, which is nothing but another variation, a soft term, a modern term for take care of me. Because in a world of this day and age where we're celebrating independence, women should be inclined to take care of men, just as women, modern women, still expect men to take care of them. That's what be on my level means. People will try to associate that with education and certain social statuses. No, it's not. There's a dollar value to this. There's a dollar value to this because it starts off of how much they make, not so much educational values and virtues and things of that nature. That's not what they're discussing. They are discussing and putting a monetary value on these men that they expect. And we see that when they marry guys of these values, what do the first thing they go for? I want half of everything. I want more money in child support. I want more of this for a lifestyle. No one's taking nothing away from me, but there are trade-offs to this. In order to be a princess and get those old school princess values, the old school princess has to be old school. By trying to dwarf and makeshift a new concept in a story that has those old school values, you can't expect old school results. This has nothing to do with the politics. I don't even really want to get into the politics of it. I'm just talking about, look at the association. You're trying to appeal to this modern woman with a childhood story that she loved as a child, and try to bake it with modern philosophies that she didn't have as a child loving this film. And the expectation is to get this new modern mass appeal over it. And I think that was not only just misguided, it was naive to assume that would happen. And even more so, we have different examples. We have sample sizes of this absolutely not working to the detriment of the film. So why would you try to use that as something to market The Little Mermaid? Now to get into what this is really everyone's always been talking about, the race bending of Ariel, and people having conniption fits over not being able to see themselves in Ariel, all the while forgetting that this is the reason why they did it, so other girls could see themselves in it. Was it right to take a character that was seen as white, historically known as white, and doing that? No, it wasn't. Not in today's climate. Like, let's just be for real. Especially how it's marketed. You could have made it this a modern Little Mermaid tale and not call the character Ariel, and called her something else. Us knowing she's walking, and this is just a reimagining of the Little Mermaid fairy tale. But by giving a brand new character, you could have alleviated all of this. Just so you could juke it. The naysayers say this ain't the same Little Mermaid. This is another story. We just call it The Little Mermaid. It's of the Little Mermaid franchise, but we're using a totally different character. It's just a Little Mermaid tale. And if you wanted to, you could have called it A Little Mermaid. What else were you gonna call it? We could call it A Little Mermaid, not The Little Mermaid, A Little Mermaid. And then you could have sidestepped it, so you could have took as much associations away from Ariel. And to be honest, you could have rewritten the whole story, used some of the original songs, of course, and made this a tale that might have happened that predated Ariel, if you wanted to, or say this takes place in a alternative universe, if you will. But all of the merits of the original story is in it, but it allows for us to do things with this new character that we weren't able to do with Ariel, and even reference it and say we wanted to make it a lot more grounded in sci-fi and maybe even closer to the original book. While also taking it completely in a different direction. The only character that we decided to use name was King Triton and Ursula, or kept Ursula's name and changed King Triton just so people would have overly associated with Ariel and called him King something else. Then you would have been able to tell a story of the Little Mermaid and made it kind of like on the level of The Wiz, if you will, but made it more sci-fi in approach and embrace the fact that we're telling an interracial story as well. So that when people would have sat down and asked, would have said, well, we like the Little Mermaid, and a lot of we figured we didn't want to tamper with the original story, so we wanted to take the franchise in a different direction and utilize a different princess, as it were. And like, say, hey, in an alternative universe, and we wanted to use a different casting, if you will, to bring a different type of vibe to the Little Mermaid mythos that we wouldn't have been able to introduce in the Ariel story, because that story is so iconic that we wanted to take a Little Mermaid in a different direction of the Little Mermaid, so we won't be able to be tied to such a popular and pop culture story. And then you could have navigated away. But now let's just talk about race bending characters. What is the problem with that? And as you can see, this is the problem. Too much political value gets caught up into it, and it takes the conversation and narrative completely away from what was said to be about inclusion. But unfortunately, the inclusion warriors like to inject a lot of politics around it, which takes it completely away from its root form of inclusion at a very sincere way. And it could come off nefarious, because as you're exclaiming inclusion, now you're bringing in feminist talking points, and then you're going against traditionalism, and then you're going against and almost to the detriment of an iconic character that was baked in traditional values. So you're almost going against yourself while trying to ride the nostalgia of old values by fighting against the nostalgia of old values, and then putting the veneer of racial inclusion. And now racial inclusion becomes an avatar of which people are fighting against. And then it's hard to discern whether or not these guys are really fighting more for the race of the character, racial issues, situation of the character, as opposed to the political value of it. And it's hard to discern which is which, but they're all tied together at the same time. So whether they're more mad about the political issue and less associated with the racial swapping. It's hard to differentiate the two because you've married them both together and you tied them so well that no matter which is the bigger issue, race becomes the topic of discussion, and that's when it goes left. The racial swapping of characters, is there really an issue with it? Should we do it? My problem with this conversation is this is old. This is nothing new, and this has been done. We've done it with Jesus. Jesus doesn't look like that, wasn't described like that. He could not have looked like the visual interpretation that we have all the time. And these same people that complain about it and want to actually sound like they're saying something, if you want people to respect the argument, you better start talking about what came before, because this is not a new occurrence. This has been going on before, and sometimes it's been accepted. We didn't see this much of a backlash with in Daredevil when they got the guy from the Green Mile to play the Kingpin. We didn't have this issue when they changed Terry Fitzgerald to a white man. And they actually said verbatim they did that because they wasn't sure if they would have had most of the cast black and were the good guys that they were going to nerf the character Spawn first theatrical debut, because white people would not have found a character, a good guy, in the star casting lineup that did not look like them. They did this for white people in Spawn. They did that then. I remember them saying this, because I remember wondering why they changed Cherry Fitzgerald to white and made Cyan biracial. They said why. To pander to the white community, and white people did not have this fake outrage they're having for The Little Mermaid. Let's talk about it. These are the facts. These are the facts. The main issue isn't the red hair. It's the fact that she's black, because they've turned brunettes red before. They did that with Mary Jane Watson. No one had an issue with it. That's a dye job Kirsten Dunst has. No one said anything about it. A lot of blonde characters dyed their head red. Matter of fact, Katie Segula's not a real redhead. This is not an issue. Never was back then. You know, in different countries that there are different variations of Married with Children. There's an Indian version with red hair of Married with Children in India. Shit you not. They've been race swapping characters from American characters to their own respective audiences in other cultures all the time. Nobody in America had an issue about it. Matter of fact, some British characters in shows that we've imported over here, we put white faces over. No one's in white America had an issue about it. We've taken black people of history and put white faces over it. No one's had an issue about it. I watched a show called Mummies Alive, where they said the kid King Tut was a blue-eyed brunette, reddish-haired brunette. No one said anything about it when I watched Mummies Alive. Can we talk? Can we talk? And no one's had an issue about it. But with The Little Mermaid, what was the main issue? Do we really have an issue with race swapping characters? That'll be the next Just to Talk. Because the fake outrage is some BS. And I will say this, Disney, you made a big mistake playing this game. But let me know in the comments below your thoughts. And this is going to be a continued discussion here on Just to Talk, because this is where we get to just talk about it. So you already know what to do. Like, share, subscribe. See you next time. And as always, till I have a better outro, chill.